Welcome, viewer. At last, we have finally arrived to a season of Digimon so well regarded, it might be hard to believe it was considered a failure at release. A director so well loved, yet has fallen further than Icarus. A character so well known, yet many know not of her origin. Please, take a seat. You no doubt feel like Alice, trying to figure out how all these things come together. Or like Rio, trying to wonder why you were even added to the season of Digimon. I am, of course, talking about Digimon Tamers. You talk to any fan of Digimon and chances are they will list this season as one of, if not the best in the franchise. But why? Why is Tamers so well regarded even years later when more seasons have premiered? How is it that a series that had such backlash at release become the fandom's favorite series? I mean, I suppose Renamon helped, but she can't be the only reason. Well, perhaps it's time I look at this show, starting with the plot. Time code for the blue pills. As for the rest of us red pills, let's begin the story and see just how deep this rabbit hole goes. So our story begins somewhere in the Matrix, I mean digital space. A small Digimon named Guilmon runs, chased by a much larger Digimon. However, another Digimon gets involved, destroying the first Digimon. The resulting explosion throws Guilmon into the real world, causing the marketable character to wonder just where he is. Meanwhile, a young boy named Takato defeats his friend in a children's card game. Okay, so technically it's pronounced Takato, not Takato, but for consistency's sake we'll just use Takato because that's just what they use in the show. Since class is about to start, Takato's friends run off to avoid being late. Takato meanwhile spills his card collection. Cleaning up the mess, he notices a strange blue card that he does not recognize. Doing the logical thing, Takato swipes the card into his toy, and causes it to break. Takato puts the toy away, not wanting to be late for school, which he happens to be anyway, and gets told to stand outside for being late. Using his free time, Takato decides to brainstorm his own Digimon called Guilmon. The teacher does not take it well.
Well, Takato, despite your apology, you certainly don't seem very sorry about being late, do you?
And before you ask, no, that teacher is not Kari. She just shares the same voice actor, though I like to think in universe she is Kari's voice actor. Look, Sonic's Japanese voice actor teaches English in Japan, so there is precedent for this. Anyway, the school day ends and Takato finalizes his OC when this girl teases him. I'm sure she isn't that important to the plot and is just some side character. We then cut to a government conspiracy as agents work on computers trying to figure something out. Back to Takato, the boy goes back to the playground to look for his toy, and finds the device has morphed into a Digimarketable device called a D-Arc. Takato recognizes the implication of the device, but is surprised that there is no Digimon. Running home, the boy looks at his DeviantArt OC and gets the bright idea to swipe the notebook into the device.
Oh.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while till he gets a Digimon. As Takato leaves, the device starts up, scans some pages, and creates a Digi-Egg. Takato is happy at this event. Later that night, as Takato sleeps, he dreams of a girl in Renamon. Obvious joke is obvious. However, given that Renamon seems to notice Takato and or the device, and that Takato is wet from the rain, it puts into question what is going on. Takato asks his father a question about Digimon being real, but ultimately he decides Digimon are real because he knows them to be real. Back at the park, Takato's friends dismiss the whole thing, telling Takato it was just a dream. Again, obvious joke is obvious. As the friends leave, Takato checks his device, finds that the egg has hatched, and a locator has been activated. At the same time, the government conspiracy notes that Digimon is about to arrive. Takato follows the arrow on the device, braving darkness and rats, as he reaches a clearing. It is there that he sees his Digimon, Guilmon. That's right, Takato, you wanted this, and as the G-Man says,
prepare for unforeseen consequences.
Despite frying some rats, Guilmon proves to be quite friendly, recognizing Takato as his creator. Doing the sensible thing, Takato smuggles Guilmon into his house, before explaining that he is Guilmon's tamer. Guilmon takes it well. Later that night, the girl named Rika and Renamon from Takato's dream fight a Digimon. Despite the Digimon digivolving, the two defeat the Digimon, with Rika commenting that she and Renamon are the best. The next day, Takato hides Guilmon before going to school.
Takato-mon? Please tell me I didn't just see that.
I think we can see where this is going. Guilmon finds his way into Takato's school, the principal sees a giant dinosaur, and Takato realizes Guilmon followed him. It is then that Takato is stopped by a kid who asks Takato if Guilmon is a Digimon. Surprised by this question, Takato asks the kid how he knows this, to which a Terriermon introduces himself and his tamer Henry. This is then followed by some choice words from Terriermon.
You must not be a very good Digimon tamer if you can't even keep track of just one Digimon.
Damn!
Not taking this well, Takato runs off, crying. Eventually, Takato has an epiphany and goes to the roof of the school, where he finds Guilmon. Realizing that the hiding space Guilmon was in wasn't enough, Takato takes Guilmon for a walk, thinking what he can do to hide the Digimon. When suddenly Renamon. With Guilmon found, Rika demands the two fight. Takato pleads with Rika to call Renamon off, but Rika is adamant. She wants to fight. However, due to type matching or plot reasons, the data type Renamon is unable to harm the virus type Guilmon. As Takato tries to regain control of Guilmon, Rika begins to use option cards as a means to augment Renamon's abilities. But before the attack can hit, Takato regains control of Guilmon, causing the Digimon to come to his tamer. However, this puts Takato into the line of fire as Renamon prepares an attack. Despite Renamon's insistence, Rika orders the attack to continue. Henry then arrives, telling the two to stop fighting. Rika and Renamon leave, leaving Henry, Terriermon, Takato, and Guilmon alone. A hiding place for Guilmon is found, with Henry and Terriermon leaving. Takato returns home to his family's bakery, where the girl from earlier is picking up some bread. Named Jerry, she tells Takato she didn't tell his parents he skipped class, to which Takato is grateful. I'm sure she's not that important. Meanwhile, Henry and Terriermon return to their flat, where Henry's sister Susie plays with Terriermon, thinking the Digimon is a stuffed toy. Obviously, Terriermon doesn't like this, but hey, they need to keep a secret. Henry then warns Terriermon not to digivolve, since if he gets bigger, they can't hide him. Back to Takato, the boy returns to the hiding spot, finding that Guilmon has dug a giant hole.
Just keep away from it.
Sorry, it's just, this button is fun to use. But for simplicity's sake, we'll put the counter up right here. Hey, why is there a Leomon death countdown? Anyway, the next day, Takato overhears his friends talk about a high-level Digimon player named the Digimon Queen, with Takato wondering if Rika is that person. But reality sets in as Takato sees the government conspiracy in the park, and worries for Guilmon, especially since the giant dinosaur isn't in the spot he left him. Eventually, Takato finds his friend, learning that Guilmon was bored and wanted to walk. Takato gets an idea. Since Guilmon is roughly the size of a child, perhaps he can say Guilmon is just cosplaying. It of course works, but the plot demands action as Rika encounters the two and has Renamon fight Guilmon in the parking garage. Henry intervenes, getting in the path of Renamon.
Digivolution.
Terriermon, Digimon 2!
Yeah, things start to get real at this point. Terriermon is unable to control his power, turning the parking garage into border crossing from Call of Duty. It's here that we start to see the reality of the situation dawn on these kids, as Gargumon basically points a Gatling gun at Rika. Guilmon saves the day, allowing Rika to escape. It's here we see how the different kids treat the situation. Takato, for instance, goes home drawing a new form of Guilmon, Rika preparing a strategy for Terriermon, and Henry trying to get Terriermon to de-digivolve. Henry in particular is concerned, telling Terriermon to not digivolve again, as something is biting at the kid. The next day, Henry and Takato are walking as a digital field forms. This is important because when a digital field forms, it's a sign a Digimon is arriving. Sort of like the GameCube from Reboot. The group runs, trying to avoid the field, to no avail. Eventually the group splits, with the field following Henry. Eventually the field manifests as Gorillamon, someone who Terriermon and Henry remembers. In a flashback, we learn that Henry got the game as a present. Booting it up, he decided to pick Terriermon. During an encounter, Henry boosted Terriermon with cards, fighting a rampaging Gorillamon. However, in the process, Terriermon digivolved and basically went postal. Later on, Henry had a talk with his father, who explains that Digimon are just data and not real. Oh, shut up! However, Henry doesn't buy this, seeing the pain in Terriermon being too much. A blue card appears. Henry swipes the card in his reader and gets a D-Arc. From the computer, the wounded Terriermon teleports out of the computer. Henry is in shock as he realizing he did this, swearing off fighting. There's more to this, but we'll get to that later. Back in the present, the group is having a tough time fighting Guilmon, especially since Henry refuses to digivolve Terriermon. But thanks to a card Takato's friends gave him, Henry is able to weaken Guilmon enough that Terriermon can defeat him. Next episode deals with Guilmon trying to have fun. The big thing is that the Tamers have no idea who he is or what he is, and try to get Guilmon a tamer. We do get some foreshadowing, stop it, with Guilmon and Jerry. Basically, we are learning more about the importance of Guilmon. The next episode we learn about Rika and her family, specifically that Rika and her mom aren't on the best of terms due to differences in lifestyle, where Miko is a model and Rika is a tomboy who likes to play card games. Do the math.
That was a great song, Rika.
Hey, don't jump the script. We will get to that when we get to that. Anyway, Rika also has problems with Renamon, specifically wondering why the Digimon hasn't digivolved, and postulating that Renamon is weak. We then get Rika's backstory, which is to say that she's very good at the card game. So good in fact that Digimon began asking her to be their tamer. Rika says that she will only take the strongest, to which Renamon makes herself known. A blue card appears, Rika swipes it, and Renamon becomes her partner. Back in the present, Renamon tries to fight a Digimon, keeping Rika safe. Rika refuses to leave Renamon's side. As Rika begins to show compassion for Renamon, Renamon digivolves into Kyubimon and destroys the Digimon. It's here the two learn they have to rely on one another for digivolution.
Yeah. Time for me to fly before I lose my lunch.
Oh right, forgot about him. So basically earlier this guy appears trying to convince Renamon that humans hold the Digimon back, but as I said earlier, that doesn't seem to be the case. In any case, it's not like Impmon is that important. Yeah, I have no one to blame but myself for this joke. But speaking of Impmon, the Digimon does appear to have some hatred of humans, a hatred he expresses by pulling pranks and havoc around the town. Some misunderstanding happens, causing Takato to think Guilmon is behind it. This mistrust in his Digimon becomes exasperated as Takato and Guilmon have trouble fighting another Digimon. This misunderstanding gets resolved, Takato regains trust in Guilmon, and Guilmon digivolves into Growlmon. Slight problem. Guilmon is unable to de-digivolve, and unlike before, hiding a giant dinosaur proves to be impossible. Eventually, Guilmon does de-digivolve, and Takato learns a lesson about how Guilmon is still Guilmon, no matter what form he is. However, things start to pick up in episode 10. I'm not joking, a lot happens in the first 14 episodes, makes summarizing this really tedious. In it, an ice Devimon takes a liking to Rika.
Bad touch! Bad touch! Stranger danger!
And wants Rika to tame him.
Hey, phrasing!
Basically, Rika is the strongest tamer and Ice Devimon is stronger than Renamon. The two would make a perfect match, which, yeah, he may have a point. Despite this, Rika refuses, siding with Renamon. One fight later, and Ice Devimon is defeated by Guilmon. The whole ordeal, and also having a Gatling gun pointed at her earlier, has Rika state that she hates all Digimon, causing a split between Tamer and Digimon. It gets better in episode 12 when Renamon tries to take on 3 Digimon alone, almost dies, and Rika joins in the fight to help her friend. With the two back on working terms, Renamon does an interesting thing. She refuses to upload the data of the defeated Digimon. See, up until this point, whenever a Digimon was defeated, the partner Digimon would absorb the data of the defeated. Think like XP in an RPG. However, Renamon comes to the belief that Digivolution comes not from the data she absorbs, but from her connection to Rika. This is interesting because Impmon has the opposite belief. As far as he is concerned, the Digimon don't need humans to digivolve. Yet despite this, he seems to have some weird connection to these kids. Renamon notices this, but without context she makes this comment.
What is wrong with you?
Also, Jerry learns about Guilmon. She takes it well. That's not a joke, she legitimately takes to Guilmon existing quite well. Anyway, in a previous episode we see Henry learn the lesson about how sometimes how you have to fight and blah blah blah. No, the important thing is this man Yamaki. He is part of a government agency called Hypnos. See, the Japanese SIGINT, or Signals Intelligence, recognized the security risk of the internet. However, due to legal reasons, it was decided to make Hypnos a secret much like the real-world Echelon program. However, Hypnos soon identified digital life forms they called Wild Ones. Normally these wouldn't be a problem, except these Wild Ones can materialize in the real world. Because they're the only ones with any real experience, it was decided to redirect Hypnos' mission to stopping the Wild Ones. For Yamaki, it means the eradication of all Digimon. The thing is, while tracking Digimon is easy, deleting them is not. Early on, Hypnos was able to almost delete Guilmon.
Renamon, you better leave before you start to disappear too.
And in another instance, they failed to fully delete another Digimon. Now, Yamaki is fully aware of the kids and their Digimon fighting the invading Digimon, but to him, they're just a symptom to a larger problem. Eventually, Yamaki gets a break as his group captures a wild Digimon. gets darker when you realize Yamaki just vivisected a digital being. You know, for kids! By extracting the core data of the captured Digimon, Yamaki is able to create a mass deletion program called Juggernaut. However, before Yamaki can activate the program, he has to deal with his greatest rival, government bureaucracy.
I'm the government, I'm the government, I'm the reason nothing works.
To be fair, this is a delicate situation. Yamaki has shown he is willing to break protocol in the use of his programs. What's more, should this fail, it would reveal Hypnos to the public, which would be a political nightmare. That being said, Yamaki's higher-ups make it known that if it comes to that, Yamaki will be the fall guy. No pressure. But, since the story demands it, the government decides to greenlight Yamaki's plan. All over Tokyo, Digimon cry out as they are drawn to the deleting orb that Hypnos houses.
I am only a representative of those who are to be your masters. I can't let you do this! I will never be a servant to any of you data scum!
And then things go south. As it turns out, the deleting orb is a portal to the digital world, a two-way portal. From this portal, an ultimate level Digimon appears, proclaiming that Digimon will rule over all the humans. Yamaki can only watch, realizing his mistake. As for the kids, they decide the best thing to do is to fight, starting with Renamon.
Renamon.
Then Terriermon. And then Guilmon. Okay, look guys, I get that... Who's this? Mahiramon? Mahiramon is an ultimate, but like, we're only at episode 14 to 52. You kinda need to step up your game. Like, use the heart of the cards or something. Actually, the cards in question have been proving to be kind of useless. Takato begins to cry, worried about losing Guilmon, before falling unconscious. And then this happens.
Takato!
We will fight! One more time! Together!
So apparently, Takato and Guilmon have a connection. Not so much heart of the cards, but more like a shared life force. One could say that for Guilmon, Takato is starting to believe. Through this connection and Guilmon, Guilmon is able to digivolve into War Growlmon. The effect is not lost on Takato as it begins to act a lot like his partner. What Guilmon feels, Takato feels. What hurts Guilmon seems to hurt Takato, but it's this connection that helps Guilmon triumph over Mahiramon. However, in its last dying breath, the tiger warns them all that others will come and that the Digimon will take over the world. As Guilmon and Takato reunite, and two side characters start to believe that Digimon exist, Yamaki watches, realizing he has his work cut out for him. And it's from here the first arc of Digimon comes to a close, and we move into the Digimon Sovereign arc. Well, Deva's arc. Because Devas. For the next couple of episodes, the Tamers and their Digimon deal with a group of Digimon called the Devas. These powerful Digimon appear to be working together in an effort to take over the world, either by destroying it or controlling poultry.
Hail to the Deva!
Over time, Henry begins to notice something peculiar about the Devas. In particular, the Devas seem to be based off of the Chinese zodiac, helpful in identifying what Devas still exist, but not much else. He's also given a rather interesting lesson from his sensei, who brings up the story about the Devas, the mythical ones, not the Digimon. That being, the Devas are good spirits.
From a certain point of view.
Which raises some more questions. And then we see this kid. I got nothing, even the characters admit he's off. But another development during this arc is Jerry, who has shown an interest in Digimon, especially to become a tamer. During a Deva attack, a random Leomon appears. Foreshadowing aside, was the rainbow really necessary? Oh, and Jerry chases after Leomon, saying it's destiny that they are partners.
Jerry's a tamer, are you sure? She's chasing him? Making eyes?
It doesn't take, and Leomon runs off, making Jerry sad. Thought I got rid of you! Point is, the Devas are basically causing trouble in the area. On the plus side, both Renamon and Terriermon reach their next forms of Rapidmon and Taomon. But on the other hand, Hypnos has been very active. Yamaki directly confronts Jun-Yu, Henry's father, and brings up the Monster Makers. See, back in the 80s, Henry's father and a few other college students worked on artificial intelligence. By 86, the program was shut down, their work ultimately being adopted for a children's toy. However, their work on artificial life did create life, specifically the digital beings that are now trying to enter the real world and cause destruction. Yamaki more or less guilt trips Jun-Yu into helping him stop the Digimon, even going so far as to enlist the help of the rest of the monster makers, with the exception of one. And it is here that we get a third party in all of this. Earlier, the Tamers encountered a blue card in the wild, trying to figure out where it came from. Backtracking, they are able to determine it came from a kid who found the card when he bumped into a strange man. When Henry's dad scanned the card, he recognized the code the card had to one of the monster makers known as Shibumi. But much like any conspiracy, Shibumi is missing. No one knows what's happened to or where he is located. Yamaki does say that he has teams looking for the man, but until then, the monster makers are all that's available. Eventually, things reach a head in this secret war when the pig Deva runs roughshod all over the area, forcing people out of their homes. The government does what it can to stop the monster, but fail. The kids then get involved, their Digimon fighting, but even this proves to be too little too late. Eventually, they bemoan the fact that they have no blue cards. Okay, so, side tangent, I probably should have brought this up, but for the Digimon to digivolve into Ultimate, they need the blue cards. Without the blue cards, the kids can't digivolve their Digimon. That is until the kids remember something. Earlier, Kazu, a friend of Takato's, had created a fake blue card, and that he was able to help Guilmon digivolve. Realizing the cards work on wish magic, the kids make wishes, get blue cards, and digivolve their Digimon. Hypnos, meanwhile, has another option. So Yamaki decided to activate the upgraded Juggernaut program, much to Junyu's pleas. Activated, the program begins to destroy all digital life forms in the city, and to be fair, it proves to be quite effective, even destroying Taomon's shield. And then things start to really go south. So to the shock of no one, the weird kid proves to not be who he acts like he is. He is actually the monkey Deva Makuramon. He destroys Juggernaut, ending its effects on the Digimon, including the pig Deva. However, the kids defeat the pig Deva, saving the day.
All's well that ends well, right?
Yeah, Makuramon gets away with Guilmon, who apparently was his main target from the get-go. There's also the situation of Hypnos. Between the pig Deva rampaging and Makuramon's destruction of Juggernaut, Hypnos has been thoroughly destroyed, especially since now its presence is known, pretty much confirming Alex Jones' rant on the organization and putting Yamaki out of a job. But between a destroyed city, a ruined government cover-up, a stolen Digimon, and a defeated group, a light appears. During the scuffle, Leomon tried to stop Makuramon from taking Guilmon. While he did fail, the fact that Jerry came to his aid is enough to give the girl a D arc. Some time passes and everyone contemplates their next action. For the kids, this means trying to find a way into the digital world. Given the amount of power the pig Deva had, its influence should still be around. However, this influence is slowly fading, meaning eventually the path to the digital world will close. As the kids search, their parents soon learn about their digital friends. Henry's father, being one of the monster makers, and working for Hypnos, already knows and does his own thing to help. Rika's grandma is happy that Rika has a protector. As for Takato...
A Digimon? You mean like that horrible monster at Shinjuku?
Rather realistic, all things considering. Jerry, meanwhile, well, she says Leomon talked with her father, but then again... The group does get a break when Takato finds a portal in Guilmon's tunnel. Realizing that they don't know how long they will be gone or what they will face, the kids plan an expedition to the digital world, part of which involves trying to tell their parents and teachers to be alright.
Also, I won't be in school after today. Please don't take that personally either.
Huh?
P.S. If I don't make it back, you can have the fruit roll-ups in my locker.
Good catch on you, Mrs. Saji. In any other context, the implications would be, unpleasant. The kids eventually prepare to enter the digital world, carrying with them a banner Takato made. Oh, you have no idea. Strangely though, Kento and Kazu join the group, wanting to help, though it's obvious they want Digimon of their own. Despite common sense saying otherwise, it's decided to allow the two goofballs to come along.
Excellent!
But then the group encounters Spike Spiegel, Yamaki. But surprisingly, the man isn't there to stop them. See, despite being blamed for everything, Yamaki still sees the problem the Digimon present and wants to do something about it. This time, however, he recognizes he went about the situation incorrectly, and instead recognizes the kids as the best course of action. For his part, he provides the kids with a communication device, in essence his support. Thanking the man, the kids enter the portal into the digital world, hopefully ready to save Guilmon.
Have I died and gone to heaven?
Oh right, I forgot about him. Guilmon also finds a way into the digital world, but at a cost. As for the kids, after planting their banner, they learn rather quickly that the digital world works differently. The closest I can describe it is it's like Stalker, where reality just doesn't seem to work. Speaking of which, I think I still have those bolts I tied the white cloth to. Also, there's a digital Skadavsk here. Who knew? However, reality not working is not the biggest problem here. No, that happens to be the Digimon. See, unlike previous seasons, the digital world in Tamers is one where the strongest survive at the expense of the weak. So basically what Senator Armstrong wants in Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. Except not exactly. Early on, the group encounters a Renamon. From this Digimon, they learn that he, and many others, yearn to escape to the real world, taking touching grass to a new meaning. But to do so requires that they be strong, or at least strong enough. To further complicate the lesson of gray and gray morality, Renamon gets deleted by a horde of Jagamon. Upon confronting one of the Jagamon explains it was not their intention to destroy Renamon. Despite the initial hostility, the group asks the horde if they saw Makuramon and Guilmon, to which the Digimon give them directions. Not that it's useful information, as Makuramon loses Guilmon due to weirdness with reality. Also, these things called the Diginomes. I mean, I'll give you that one. Eventually the group gets split, with Rika, Renamon, Kento, and Kazu being sucked up into a digital storm. Which is a problem since those digital streams teleport whoever steps into them somewhere else. And in essence, there is no guarantee that the two groups will ever encounter each other again. Take your bets how long till the two groups reunite. So now the mission is to find Guilmon and reunite with one another. But then we get episode 26, Kazu and Kenta's excellent adventure.
Excellent!
And because of that, I am renaming Kazu and Kenta Bill and Ted. Look, the only big thing in this episode is that a Babamon and Digimon give the group shelter before they continue. Bill and Ted try to get to the Digimon, it goes nowhere. But episode 27 is where things start to get interesting. While the other group is exploring a village, they encounter a motorcycle going Christine on the villagers. Despite some early setbacks, the motorcycle is sent to hell, literally, and then returns with a new rider, Beelzemon.
Evacuation in progress. Get the f*** out of here! Get the f*** out of here! Get the f*** out of here!
In the following episode, we return to the other group as they are exploring more weirdness in the digital world. During one encounter, Renamon almost dies when... oh, fuck, Rio. Okay, so, Ryu... how do I put this? He complicates things. I'll explain him in the character analysis part of the video, but for now, just know that he has some history in this universe. So, Rio and Cybergermon come and save the day. However, Cybergermon proves difficult, forcing Rio to whip the Digimon into submission. Bill and Ted recognize Rio as being a very good card player, with Rika being weirdly hostile to the boy. As it turns out, Rio recognizes Rika, as the two had fought against one another in a card tournament. Thing is, Rika was never able to defeat Rio, something Bill and Ted bring up. Rika leaves, with Bill and Ted staying with Rio. Eventually, Rio, Bill, and Ted meet up with the other group. While they're happy to find one another, they are concerned that Rika ran off on her own. In addition, Rio doesn't recognize Makuramon or Guilmon. And this just in on the Guilmon update. Turns out the Digimon has found the banner. He is now wearing it like a cape and looking for the others. While this happens, something about Guilmon causes some Digimon to digivolve, creating a large light. This light catches the attention of Makuramon and the Dragon Deva. Oh right, they exist. The Tamers, except Rika, spot Makuramon, follow, and get in a fight. The two Devas prove still too strong until Cybergermon gets involved, killing the Dragon Deva and forcing Makuramon to retreat. While this was all happening, Guilmon got lost. So close. The group decides to leave Rio since Cybergermon has decided to have a hissy fit. The next day, a storm passes when Jerry notices a light coming from Takato's pack. For some reason, the PDA Yamaki gave them has started to work again. They briefly email the man before the storm subsides, causing them to lose contact. With no new option available, the group decides to return to the banner, which they find is missing, though Guilmon notes he has Guilmon's scent, showing just how close they are to finding the little Digimon. And in Rika's case, she actually gets saved by Guilmon. Rather quickly, the two groups reunite. And then Beelzemon! So Beelzemon makes himself known to the group, going after Guilmon. However, Cubimon recognizes something in Beelzemon, realizing the Digimon is a digivolved Impmon. See, earlier the dog Deva contacted Impmon, promising the Digimon power. Impmon took the power and went on a drunken rampage. The dog Deva eventually reminded Beelzemon of the deal, which he's now ready to do his part. But then things get complicated. In the real world. See, while Yamaki has been placed on administrative review, the government decides to make use of his work. Activating Juggernaut, the government watches in horror as they can't control the program. Thankfully, one of Yamaki's superiors had some common sense and contacted the guy who literally built the thing. Yamaki and his co-worker/girlfriend Riley shut the system down, making it clear that they have it under control. But to quote John Freeman,
"It's time for me to live up to my family name and face full life consequences."
In this case, the activating of Juggernaut caused data streams to appear in the digital world. Takato, Henry, and Terriermon get swept up, separating them from the group. What's more, the dog Deva captures Guilmon, putting him in a cage. We then get another filler episode. Basically, there's this Andromon that's been fighting an Orochimon who enslaved some Gekomon by making them make some milkshakes. It was Saki in the Japanese dub, but that's besides the point. Bill gets a new Digimon in the form of Gardramon, Andromon's previous form. It's very Season 1-esque and pointless. But then we get episode 32, Shibumi Speaks.
We did listen!
So Takato and Henry end up in a water cave, trapped. However, they soon learn that they have contact with Yamaki. And what luck! Yamaki's with their parents. The two groups try to come up with a plan out of the cave. That is, until Henry notices something odd with the PDA. Despite there being water everywhere, the PDA is not wet. Henry and his father then begin to hypothesize that maybe because the PDA is not alive, it does not know what it means to be wet. Henry then wonders if perhaps the digital world works on perceptions. Something that Rio brought up earlier when he said that he only got hungry and tired when he wanted to feel hungry and tired. So Henry tests this by going into the water and staying under for some time. He quickly finds that because the digital world is not reality, they can actually breathe underwater. Or perhaps the water doesn't drown them. Look, this episode gets trippy real fast, so just hold on. The small group bid their parents farewell, enter the water, have a misunderstanding with some Digimon, and then get teleported to the school building. There they encounter a sleeping ghost of a being. Talking with the being, it introduces himself as Shibumi. And brace yourselves, cause it's about to get strange. Not Rio strange, but still. So Henry and Takato start asking Shibumi questions, specifically about the digital world. Shibumi, well, his answers, well, maybe it's best I show you how he answered my questions. So, do you know a way out of here or not?
Maybe you're all dreaming like me. Maybe all beings everywhere are dreaming about what they will become.
Uh-huh, I see. Yeah, this was a waste of time. Doraemon, we're going with Plan B. You go get the D Brigade, I'll get the helicopters in the mixtape. The big takeaway is that to his knowledge, the digital world works on belief. Believe something can work, and it does. Case in point, Takato. Takato wanted Guilmon to be real, and Guilmon became real. Though he also points out it's possible Guilmon was already real and he made Takato. Like I said, it gets weird. Other little tidbits that Shibumi brings up are the Diginomes, a species of digital beings that appear to have pre-existed the Digimon, and the purpose of the Tamers. Takato gets an existential crisis about Guilmon while Henry asks if Shibumi can help them. Shibumi brings up the giant D-Arc above them. He explains that it's the Arc, a device capable of moving around the digital world. He decides to give the device to the kids to help them travel about the digital world. As the kids leave, the ghostly being falls asleep as we watch in the real world and answer about Shibumi. This entire time, the man has been in a coma between the living and the dead, dream and reality. Which begs the question as to how he did things like spread the blue cards or escape from the government. Unless it was the gnomes. But as the two fly in their Arc, Henry's father takes Susie to the park, watching the little girl play. Yamaki meets up with Junyu, bringing up what he has found out about Shibumi. At the moment, Susie looks into the sky and sees the Arc fly past with Terriermon on it. Susie yearns for the Digimon. A digital gate opens and the adults watch as Susie disappears into the digital world. It's assumed that it's destined, but let's be real here. So Susie tries playing around but finds the world to be hostile. That is until she meets Antilamon, the rabbit Deva. And because I actually used her name and not just Deva, that means she's important. Antilamon tries to tell Susie she can't play because she has a job, but the Digimon relents and decides to spend some time with the little girl. Sometime later, Susie runs off to find food, to which Antilamon takes as an opportunity to return to her job. Not that that really matters because Mikuremon finds Susie, harasses the girl, and brings about the wrath of Antilamon. At the same time, Terriermon hears Susie, and the DR crashes nearby. Antilamon defeats Mikuremon, sending the monkey Deva away. Henry scans Antilamon, quickly recognizing the Digimon as the rabbit Deva, and warns Susie to run. But to the surprise of everyone, a pink Digivice appears, making Susie a tamer, and Antilamon her Digimon.
Susie's a tamer? To a Deva?
I still blame the gnomes. However, the celebrations are short-lived as Antilamon gets demoted to a rookie form of Leomon. Terriermon comments on how the two look alike. Rather quickly, the group recognizes the importance of having a former Deva on their side, and asks Leomon if she knows anything about Guilmon, to which she says she does. Specifically, she knows where the Digimon is, as she was guarding the way. Takato wants to rescue Guilmon right then and there, but Leomon stops him, warning that her master, the Phoenix Sovereign, is too powerful. Speaking of which, the Phoenix Sovereign speaks with the dog Deva, congratulating on getting Guilmon. who is trying to escape and notices some weirdness in their reflection. However, the Phoenix Sovereign brings up how another has betrayed them, ordering the dog Deva to take care of the humans. Oh, and brings up Beelzemon. Speaking of which, Beelzemon catches up and gets right to work demolishing the group. Despite their best efforts, Beelzemon proves to be just too much, and then Leomon takes to the stage.
Let's get ready to rumble!
That's right, folks! Tonight on this pay-per-view event, we watch the execution of Leomon. I am, of course, your host, Walter. Joining me is my co-host, Dorumon, and let me tell you, what a turnout. Who would have thought that sacrificing Leomon would go on to become a time-honored tradition in the Digimon fandom? From as far as Ukraine to as close as Harlem, anyone who is anyone is here to see this event. And is that? Why, yes! Yes, it is! That's Lionel Johnson, Primarch of the Dark Angels. Yes, folks, even the lion is here to see the death of Leomon. And the bell has just rung, signaling the start of this time-honored tradition. Here we have Leomon try and talk Beelzemon down, bringing up how he is being manipulated, but Beelzemon just does not care as he literally guts Leomon. And now we cut to the Jerry cam. What's that? I see. It would appear that the censors have cut the Jerry cam. They say I have gone too far with the joke and at this point, it's just pure bullying. But in all seriousness, the death of Leomon really gets to Jerry, especially when Leomon tries to comfort her. Something about this is just too much for her. Then again, I did turn a heart-wrenching in-universe event into a WWE-style pay-per-view event, so maybe that's to blame. In any case, the event causes someone else to also have a break. In this case, it's Takato. His anxiety turns into rage as he forces Guilmon to digivolve. Oh, also, the two groups reunited. It happened during the pay-per-view event. But as we see, Growlmon proves to be not enough. With the fires of rage still burning, Takato forces Growlmon to digivolve into a mega form, to which Growlmon does, into Megidramon. However, something isn't right. Maybe it's because the lovable Guilmon is now a monster, maybe it's because the hazard sides on Megidramon start appearing in the real world, or maybe it's because Megidramon is the literal fucking apocalypse made manifest. I am not joking about that. In lore, this thing's presence indicates the start of the end times. Yeah, Megidramon's mere presence causes the digital world to break down while causing havoc in the real world. The destruction also causes Makuramon to appear, berating Beelzemon for causing this to happen. Beelzemon responds by killing Makuramon and absorbing its data. This act gives the Demon Lord access to the Monkey Deva's abilities, using them to capture both Renamon and Terriermon as they try to help stop Beelzemon. Thanks to some card trickery, the two are able to escape, but not before Beelzemon absorbs part of their data. With all that he has, Beelzemon finally overpowers Megidramon. This is actually a good thing. With Megidramon stopped, the literal apocalypse pauses, for now, causing things to stabilize. It also causes Takato to realize just how wrong this is, that he used Guilmon in such a way. This is further emphasized by Jerry, who chastises Takato for turning the sweet and lovable Guilmon into a monster. Takato approaches his friend, and starts to have a bit of self-reflection. For a moment, Takato takes in what Shibumi says, that Guilmon is data. Since Takato created Guilmon, it would be rather simple to start again and create another Guilmon. However, Takato rejects this mindset, remembering all the good times he had with the Digimon, wanting to reunite with his friend, that there is only one Guilmon, voiced by Steve Bloom. Through this spawn, Guilmon returns to normal, but that's not all that happens.
Guilmon, Biomerge.
Human becomes Digimon, and Digimon becomes human as the two digivolve together to become Gallantmon. Or Dukemon, if you want to be technical. Gallantmon lays down Beelzemon's sins, how not only Beelzemon has refused the friendship offered to him, but also took the noble life of Leomon, that Beelzemon shows no remorse for his actions. With this in mind, Gallantmon decides enough is enough and that Beelzemon has to die. The two fight, trading blows. We also watch as the dog Deva try and fail at killing Leomon for her treason. He promptly gets absorbed by Beelzemon. But despite all this power, Beelzemon gets knocked out by Gallantmon. With the threat neutralized, Gallantmon prepares to end the Digimon's life. But then mercy comes from an unexpected source. Jerry pleads with Gallantmon to stop the fighting. She brings up how there's been too much killing, that killing Beelzemon won't change anything, and that with their power it's not even worth killing the Digimon. Beelzemon is taken aback. He can't comprehend how Jerry would offer such forgiveness after all that he's done. Still, it's enough that the Digimon departs from the field, trying to understand what has happened. Gallantmon digivolves back into Takato and Guilmon, with Takato getting a new D-Arc to replace the last one that broke because of the apocalypse. With the Devas destroyed, mostly, and Beelzemon no longer a threat, the group turns their attention to the Digimon Sovereign and the rescue of Guilmon. However, with Jerry still traumatized and Henry not wanting to risk Susie, Bill and Ted stay behind to look after Jerry and Susie while Henry, Takato, Rika, and their Digimon follow Leomon into the realm of the Sovereigns.
Pay no attention to the handsome and ageless rock star hiding behind the couch. I am the mighty Sovereign.
The group find the Phoenix Sovereign, who I'll now call David Bowie because, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that. They demand the return of Guilmon, but the Sovereign refuses, causing a fight. Henry gets concerned about Terriermon and Susie, but the Digimon says Momentai and continue the fight. We then get this scene.
She can fly? I fear I'll never understand these humans.
Hey, what's all the jabbering about over here? Where'd Susie go?
She flew away.
She flew away? Are you kidding me? But how? You were supposed to be watching her!
I watched the whole thing.
That's actually a pretty funny show, I'll give you that. Susie's magical arrival causes Terriermon to fight harder, and Henry learns that he's not alone. We get another bio-merge and David Bowie gets defeated, except not really. The group retreats with the singer chasing after them, but then another individual gets involved.
Cease your attack, Chiaka!
Oh no, it's another lore dump episode. Alright, let's get this over with. So, Shenron demands David Bowie to explain himself, why he's wasting time on the humans when there's the true enemy. David Bowie states that he's justified since the humans destroyed his servants, to which Shenron reminds David Bowie that the Phoenix sent the Devas to attack first, to which the Phoenix says he did so because he wanted the Devas to reach a higher Digivolution to fight the great enemy. But who is this great enemy? Well, Shenron explains that some unknown being has been destroying the digital world. For a time, the being was dormant, allowing the digital world to grow, but in that growth, it reawoken the being, restarting the destruction. In order to halt the great enemy, Shenron hid the catalyst of Digivolution, in the form of Digimon. David Bowie demands the kids in Digimon prove themselves worthy to fight the great enemy. Takato and Guilmon biomerge, fight David Bowie, and then Shenron tells them to quit it, and that if the humans want to help, they need to fight the true enemy. We then get a cut to Rio and the other Sovereigns, and the rest of the group reunites with the main cast. Anyway, David Bowie chastises Shenron for turning the catalyst into a Digimon, to which Shenron says that that was not his doing, but the gnomes. And what do you know? The gnomes are here towing the living dead form of Shibumi. The awake dreamer explains that the being is a program called the D-Reaper. The purpose of the D-Reaper was that back in the 80s, due to memory limitations, there needed to be a program to help clean up and deal with the ever-growing demands of the AI on the hardware. The D-Reaper program did this by returning the AI to their original form should they exceed the parameters. What's concerning to Shibumi is that the D-Reaper should not be able to destroy the Digimon as strong as the Sovereign, making him wonder if all the deleting and absorbing data has caused the D-Reaper to mutate. But before Shibumi could continue, the red pill kicks in and Shibumi wakes to reality, causing much confusion to the kids in Digimon in the digital world, also foreshadowing with Guilmon as he escapes. The Tamers and Sovereign set out to save Guilmon, with the true power of the great enemy being seen. David Bowie gets wounded and Rika and Renamon go to save Guilmon alone. Well, also Rio is there and he does cause a rock slide. But yeah, they're alone. Guilmon is saved, but the presence of the D-Reaper makes things difficult. Rika decides to do her best to stop the goo from expanding. Renamon tries to stop Rika, Rika tells Renamon to not worry, the two have an understanding, biomerge, and we get Sakuyamon. The goo gets stopped temporarily, but it's enough time for the group to finally reunite. However, something calls out to Jerry, promising her freedom from sadness. With the group back together and the main threat identified, the Digi-Sovereign asks Guilmon to help them, to power the Digimon to fight back against the D-Reapers. They understand if Guilmon does not want to help, as it's ultimately his decision. Take a wild guess what Guilmon does. Around the net, Digimon digivolve into higher forms, ready to fight the D-Reaper.
That must have hurt. Okay, there's no way that you're a Mega.
Marine Angemon becomes important later on, and oh, what do you know? The foreshadowing counter is broken. Yeah, that joke was getting old. The kids then get another surprise in the form of a message from Yamaki and Jun-Yu. See, the adults recognize that a plan had to be made to get the kids out of the digital world. Initially, the idea was to program something, anything to help them, but due to early 2000s hardware, which you can learn more about by watching any LGR episode like this one.
Thankfully, as a 36-year-old with a thinning hairline and a mortgage, I feel at ease being complimented by 2001-era Justin Timberlake.
Rendering such help would take too much time. They do get help from Yamaki, who grants them access to the Hypno supercomputer, but even this beast has trouble with the workload. Jun-Yu then tries something new. Rather than using a single powerful computer to render the program, he instead opts to use a newer concept of spreading the workload across the free memory of multiple computers. The idea does have merit as it's been used with medical research. However, for what they're doing, they need a lot of help. So the monster makers reach out to anyone and everyone via email to link their computers together. No doubt having problems being seen as a scam, but let's be real, this sounds exactly like the kind of thing a scam would be. But Hypnos is able to get enough suckers, I mean good Samaritans, to link their computers up to render an arc to help transport the kids home. There is a catch. The kids have 40 minutes to get to the extraction zone and depart, or else risk staying in this doomed world. And to be fair, the kids do make it to the Ark. However, both Rika and Renamon become concerned for Impmon. Despite everything, he is still part of the group, or at the very least Renamon and Rika still see good in him. The two run off as the Ark arrives. The group boards the vehicle, with Guilmon starting to talk to the machine. Yes, this is important. Renamon and Rika find a battered Impmon. See, after Jerry spared him, guilt began to run rampant in Beelzemon's head, causing him to want to remove his power. He gets his wish, and as I said, found by Rika and Renamon, but the two have taken too much time. The Ark begins to move. Takato, however, trips. The group does their best to help rescue the Gogglehead, but it becomes evident that it will fail. And then, something unusual happens.
Please, listen to me! Stop!
What's going on? What on earth's happening?
The Ark stops and listens to Guilmon. No one is certain why this is happening, but regardless, it gives Takato, Rika, Renamon, and Rio time to be rescued. Also, Marine Angemon hitches a ride, giving Ted his Digimon.
It is no exaggeration or hyperbole that all evils of the world are endorsed and committed by gnomes.
So the Ark continues on its course, slowly moving. But of course, we need more drama. The Ark begins to lose power, falling back into the digital world as the D-Reaper chases them. Takato begs to the Ark to not give up. And then, a miracle. Somehow, the Ark connects with the PDA, telling Takato a simple okay. Instantly, the Ark begins to move again, racing and breaching the barrier between the digital and real worlds. The adults, thanks to some calculations, reunite with the kids, happy to see everyone is alright. The Ark then begins to break apart, falling back into the digital world. All is well. Well, given this is episode 41 of 51? So Jerry's parents are not present. Takato, the gentleman he is, decides to help Jerry home. It's clear that the girl is not all there, which I mean after
brave Jerry
is understandable. But even then, Jerry begins to act abnormal.
Protein 26.4 grams, saturated fat.
Carbon 20 kilograms.
Jerry is brought home, her father not happy. In any case, Takato starts heading home the next day when he looks at the television.
I come to make an announcement.
Oh, sorry, had this on the wrong channel.
The chaos. It followed us home.
Oh.
Yeah, the D-Reaper has found a way into the real world. With man-made horrors made manifest now causing destruction, the end goal of the season has been found. Instantly, the monster makers and Hypnos begin researching the D-Reaper, trying to find any advantage they can. Initially, they're concerned with the military being present, especially since it's been established that man-made weapons are kind of useless against digital beings. But to be fair, the military isn't as blunt as they appear, deploying a probing missile into the zone.
This is the missile guidance system we clowned at this. Oh, hello.
It doesn't work, so for the time being, the military cordons off the area, creating a zone of alienation. Unfortunately, this did little to stop two factions of stalkers from having a turf war, a militant cult forming around a magic rock, and a sizable population of Gopniki turning up because why not? As for the kids, they decide that the best course of action is to fight the D-Reaper. Special mention to Rika for reconnecting with her mother. But then there is Jerry, who is acting strange. Could be worse. The kids enter the zone of alienation, using the military gunfire as a cover. Early on, they encounter encounter strange digital beings who they identify as the D-Reaper. Obviously they run away because, deleting reality and all. For the time being, the kids set up shop in the school while also using Takato's family bakery as a place for food. Outside of the zone, a lot of things start to happen. For the monster makers, they get a break in the form of Shibumi. Out of his coma, the man explains what he knows about the D-Reaper. This information helps the monster makers track down an early copy of the program. They also identify that the D-Reaper seems to avoid heavily forested areas. Unfortunately, neither information is really useful as the copy operates differently than how the D-Reaper is currently operating, no doubt evolving past its programming or something. As for the plants, well, the monster makers don't have much use for this at the moment, simply noting it about the D-Reaper. The next big thing is Impmon. Now in the real world, the Digimon tries to reunite with the two kids from earlier named Ao and Mako. However, the two kids have moved elsewhere, though leave the Digimon a note. After getting directions from Henry's sensei and being treated with respect and kindness, Impmon reaches the two kids. Instantly, the children show how they've changed and that they recognize that the reason Impmon left was because of how selfish they were. Obviously, he forgives them. But from the TV, Impmon learns about the D-Reaper's return. He bids the two farewell, saying he has to make things right. Mako gives Impmon a toy gun and Ao a kiss. Impmon thanks the two and runs off.
I've never felt this kind of power before, and this time I'm fighting for what's right!
That's right, people. Because of kindness, Impmon digivolves into the Lord of Gluttony, Beelzemon Blast Mode. Be kind to people, they might be demons. He arrives in the zone, fighting off some of the D-Reaper's agents and helping the Tamers. Also, the Tamers' parents offer their support. All is well, until Takato spots Jerry for some reason. I'm sure it's nothing. But really, the true bad thing is that the kids realize they can't biomerge. Because they are real and no longer data, the kids can't merge with their Digimon. Without biomerging, the battle is pointless. Oh, right. Alice McCoy. So this girl and her Dobermon arrive bringing a message from the Digimon Sovereign, stating how the battle is being fought in the digital world. The message concludes with Dobermon sacrificing itself to give the Tamers the ability to biomerge in the real world. And then the girl disappears. Yeah, it's a Kanaka thing. All I can say is just roll with it. But this isn't the only message to be received, for the monster makers get a surprise contact from the Ark.
The Ark was the first space colony created by mankind.
No, not that Ark. Somehow, the Ark that transported the kids still has power. It's fleeting, but enough that it gives the monster makers options. Also, the other Tamers arrive, offering their support in the fight. But the biggest thing to happen in the fight is what Takato learns. During the battle, Gallantmon gets pulled into the D-Reaper, causing the Digimon to destabilize into Takato and Guilmon. Landing in a park area, Takato is surprised to see the park is relatively untouched. But what's even more shocking is the presence of Jerry.
Your concern is illogical. This being is in no physical danger. She's a very interesting sample.
Oh no, she's gone Full Metal Alchemist fan. Quick, get her out of there before she evolves into a Death Note fan. So Takato and Guilmon are confused, not just by Jerry's presence, but how she knows so much about the D-Reaper. That is, until Steve Bloom takes control of Guilmon and states that Jerry is not Jerry. The doppelganger confirms this, revealing herself to be an agent of the D-Reaper. She also reveals the D-Reaper's observations of the world, things like how organics can't be rendered down like data, that humanity has exceeded its parameters and must be deleted, and most importantly, that Jerry is full of sorrow that fuels the D-Reaper. The agent then chases after Takato using mind powers to weaken the kid, as the plants inside begin to wilt and die. Outside, the Tamers fight off more of the D-Reaper's agents when this Kamen Rider knockoff arrives. It's Ryo, so just ignore him. Eventually, the Tamers find a way into the D-Reaper, scare off the Jerry clone, and rescue Takato. All thanks to Ted's Digimon Marine Angemon, because love or something. The important takeaway the kids learn is that the zone the D-Reaper controls limits the powers of biomerge. Until this limitation is taken care of, any expedition into the zone of alienation will be fruitless. But they're not the only ones exploring the zone, and I don't just mean the stalkers. Guilmon and Impmon also investigate. Guilmon in particular has a sense for Jerry, leading the one-winged angel to a place in the sky. However, a barrier stops the two, prompting Beelzemon to punch through. The D-Reaper responds by tying Beelzemon down, practically crucifying the Digimon. Guilmon, however, is able to slip by, finding Jerry in a bubble. For the time being, she is catatonic, unable to respond to the Digimon's questions. Eventually, Jerry begins to react, seeing Beelzemon and promptly saying she hates all Digimon. We then get, well, nightmares. And oh boy, do things get real. So we learn that at a young age, Jerry's mom died. The event scarred the little girl, especially when her father commented that it must have been destiny, much like how it was destiny for Leomon to die. This talk of destiny breaks Jerry, causing her to, well,
running away from destiny?
So, let's go from 11 back to 5? So the kids meet up with the Monster Makers for the next phase. The Monster Makers reveal that the Ark is still active and that they've been modifying the program for combat against the D-Reaper. By using the D-Ark of Henry, the Monster Makers hope to materialize their creation into the real world. But before that can be done, the actions of Beelzemon and Guilmon become noticed, with Susie bringing up that she saw the two enter the orb. As it turns out, that orb is the D-Reaper's kernel, its brain. Destroy the brain, you destroy the D-Reaper. Takato is hesitant to destroy the kernel as it holds Jerry. And speaking of Jerry, her father. And we're right back at 11. So Jerry's father is not that great of a parent. After his wife died, Jerry's dad did what he could to care for his daughter. The problem is that his parenting style was not that great. Despite this, he still loves his daughter, to the point he hijacks Hypnos's van, runs a roadblock, and tries to enter the D-Reaper. He doesn't make it far. But his actions do something. Accessing Jerry's memories, the D-Reaper begins to take note of what Jerry knows about her father.
Father? Father?
What's wrong with it?
It doesn't understand the word. The D-Reaper and we Digimon don't have parents. It's a new concept for it.
It's not much, but it's something. The D-Reaper attacks, and the kids retaliate. While this happens, Shibumi notes that the Ark is having trouble entering the real world. Remembering how they used the data of the Digimon to make and modify the being, Shibumi makes a blue card, helping the Ark materialize into reality. But the program doesn't reach its full potential until it unites with Gallantmon, becoming a steed for the Digimon. Yamaki christens the being Grani after Siegfried's horse. They would have used a surfboard, but Albert, king of the dwarves, was using it to get the Rheingold. Wonder how many of you actually played that game, and not just watched Mandalore Gaming's review on that. With Grani now in reality, the team decides to do a checkup on the being, if only to learn what it knows. To their horror, they discover files in Grani's memory that shows how things are in the digital world. Things are not looking good. Despite the army created early on, it's clear that the digital world might be a lost cause. At the very least, this information motivates the group to fight back, which they do because the D-Reaper keeps expanding and evolving. Which also causes the world to see what biomerging is. Yeah, that was a weird moment. Inside, a development happens. Beelzemon breaks free, joining the fight while Guilmon fights to awaken Jerry. As Beelzemon fights, the D-Reaper recognizes what Beelzemon has done, guilting the Digimon. Beelzemon accepts what he has done, knowing full well he can never be forgiven. At the very least, he can save Jerry. The D-Reaper and him trade blows, causing Beelzemon to lose Mako's gift, which enrages the Demon Lord. Thankfully, Gallantmon is able to use Grani's main attack, creating an opening in the D-Reaper. Beelzemon races in, using the data of Leomon to use one of the Digimon's attacks. While this attack does break open the kernel, it also reminds Jerry of, well... So she pushes away, much to Beelzemon's dismay. The shock of this happening opens Beelzemon to an attack, causing him to fall from the sky.
Beelzemon, hold on!
He doesn't die.
I don't believe it!
But Jerry still thinks he dies and basically gets some self-hatred. Things go from bad to worse when Yamaki learns that the military plans to bomb the D-Reaper. Despite their pleas, the bombing commences as many bomblets are deployed. But as Yamaki notes, the bombers being used are B-2 stealth bombers, which would imply a top-secret mission of some kind, which gets confirmed by a communique from an American scientist. He states that the military recognized that to defeat the D-Reaper, special EMP weapons had to be deployed. While it's not much, the payload does slow down the D-Reaper while also gathering information from what's going on inside. I assume the US Air Force had more pressing issues at hand limiting their help.
Colonel Neal, what the hell are you doing? In the middle of my backswing?
For the time being, the kids are pulled back, and briefly split up due to the D-Reaper expanding. Sometime later, and the kids are still waiting. Special note goes to Takato, who's with his cousin and the narrator Kai. You know, Kai? Yeah, I don't blame you. He was in the Battle for Adventurers Island movie. We also learned this about Digimon.
So, Renamon, you're a girl, right?
Actually, Digimon aren't divided into genders.
And just like that, DeviantArt became a hive of scum and villainy. Well, I mean, it was already a hive of scum and villainy, but you know what I mean. But more importantly is the issue of the D-Reaper. The being has begun to expand across the world, slowly encompassing regions. Like here's Detroit. And here's Detroit after the D-Reaper attacked. Jokes aside, the monster makers soon realize that the D-Reaper is raising the temperature of the planet, turning the Earth into an oven to wipe out all life. Surprisingly, the monster makers use this plan against the D-Reaper. Since the D-Reaper is having data move faster than the speed of light, theoretically they should be able to have time go backwards, sending the D-Reaper into a previous form. To help with this, Shibumi makes a red card, something to allow the bio-merged Digimon to survive in the D-Reaper. With the call to arms made, the kids, plus Rio, join together for one final assault. It's now the endgame. By this point, the inside of the D-Reaper is nothing but a wasteland, no life to be seen anywhere, except for some random Gapniki. The kids fight, racing to save Jerry, and speaking of which, Jerry finally snaps out of it, realizing that Leomon meant for Jerry to make her own destiny. She demands the D-Reaper to stop, which goes about as well as you can expect. The other kids continue the attack, fighting tooth and nail to defeat the D-Reaper. Then, a hole in reality opens up, causing a part of the D-Reaper in the digital world to appear. With the two parts of the D-Reaper present, the plan to delete the D-Reaper, well, more accurately downgrade it, goes into effect. Like before, goes about as well as you can expect. But then, this happens.
Do you want to fly, Gallantmon?
Who are you? Honey!
Grani sacrifices itself to allow Gallantmon to enter burst mode, giving the Digimon the power to save Jerry. Meanwhile, the other Tamers use all their power to hold back the digital world D-Reaper, saved at the last minute by the Sovereigns who drag the D-Reaper back into the hole. Mega Gargomon starts the next phase of the plan, spinning opposite of the vortex to reverse time. At the same time, the monster makers activate the Juggernaut program they placed in Terriermon earlier, both downgrading the D-Reaper and also bringing it back into the digital world. But then the drama begins. Shibumi soon realizes he did not account for the kids when he created the red card. Slowly, the Digimon de-digivolve with the kids and Digimon separating. Thanks to Guilmon, Takato is able to rescue Jerry like the knight he is. All the kids are then rescued by Marine and Jimon. Because foreshadowing. The day is saved as the D-Reaper is no more. We get even more good news as Impmon reunites with the group, introducing Mako and Ao to the group. This is important because Mako and Ao are now his tamers. Because gnomes.
A gnome feels no empathy nor remorse.
But yeah, the drama is still here. The Digimon begin to feel funny, slowly reverting to their Digitama form. Junyu appears, apologizing. He explains that this is all because of the Juggernaut program, and it attracting the Digimon back into the digital world. The emotions run high as the kids bid farewell to their Digimon. Junyu begs for forgiveness from his son, saying things will get better. Henry just shakes his head. In the English dub, we'll talk about the differences later. With the threat of the D-Reaper gone, life returns to normal in Shinjuku. Takato walks around, exploring the places the Tamers interacted with during their time with their Digimon. He stops at Guilmon's hiding place, checking inside the tunnel the dinosaur dug. To his surprise, he spies a digital portal with the hope of reuniting returning. Hopefully with Runaway Locomon because, well... And that was Digimon Tamers. Is it as good as people say it is? Well, yes it is. Not perfect, but I mean, wow. There are a couple of reasons why I think Digimon Tamers' story works. For starters, let's get the elephant out of the room. Tamers is dark. Not Neon Genesis Evangelion dark, but darker than most kids anime. We have things like characters dealing with self-hatred, sadness, wanting to commit genocide, extreme anger. We have images like death, destruction, Armageddon. Yes, these things did exist in earlier seasons, but their effect on the plot was limited to character backstories or small moments. Here, it's front and center. But the show doesn't overload on the darkness. It shows slivers of light, of characters growing, becoming better, internal drama of villains trying to redeem themselves, kids heeding the call to save the world, not because of some grand plan or prophecy, but kids having their dreams come true and using their dreams to save the world. To quote a mayor of Earl Vista,
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night, we will not vanish without a fight, we're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
Then you have the setting, which compared to earlier seasons feels way more realistic. You get a feeling that this is the real world and not some set. Things are not so black and white. Is the government evil? Not really. They're just doing what they think is best, moving through bureaucracy and sometimes admitting they might be wrong. The military reacting to what is going on and actually being smart about things. The Sovereign are not one unified group, but 4 different beings, each with their own opinions on how to deal with the D-Reaper. Things are complicated, but in a way that you can understand. Then you get the dialogue, and again, it feels real. Kind of snarky.
No need to make breakfast. We own a bakery. That's all we make.
If she gets as good as Rika, we're gonna lose all our cards.
Didn't you already lose most of your cards to me?
I've said this before, boys who break the rules grow up to become thugs and zookeepers.
But what's wrong with being a zookeeper, Miss Hisagi?
Oh, Takato, don't be silly. For one thing, you don't get any respect. You have to work all day with animals who never do what you tell them to do.
Gee, that kind of sounds like what you do now.
What?
But still feels real. But like anything, it's not perfect. A major complaint I have with the story is the early antagonists in the Digital World arc. Early on, it's established that the Digimon the kids fight are wild ones, are dangerous Digimon. But we are also shown that not all these Digimon are evil as the series continues. I think it would be helpful if at the start the kids come with an agreement, like, I don't know, only attack Digimon that are causing problems, show signs of the group slowly forming. Maybe also show how the different Devas are from the wild ones, like the wild ones are just causing trouble, but the Devas are trying to reshape the world. As is, the Devas just kind of appear and don't really feel that much like a unified force. Sort of with Mikuromon and the Dog Deva, but not really. And then there's the Digital World arc, which is just let's explore, then go back to the flag, then explore, then back to the flag, explore.
Let's head for the malt shop.
I can't say the Digital World arc is pointless, since important things do happen in it, but it feels so wasted. There are so many filler episodes in this arc, many of which feel like Adventure 1 and 02 episodes. This could have been the perfect time to make some backstory. You have Digimon from this world. Maybe show the different experiences they had, like Terriermon is young so he sees it all as like a kid does, whereas Renamon and Leomon are older and know the horrors of this world. Then add to this with even older Digimon commenting on how the digital world was different, more alive, how there was once cities and towns and now just wasteland. Maybe hint at the D-Reaper early on. And while we're on the subject of Eldritch monsters, Kanaka. So Kanaka is a Cthulhu Mythos fan. Not a bad thing, since it can lead to questions like what is the difference between data and a soul. But then it can lead to writing like, the gnomes did it, or Alice McCoy. Seriously, what is this character? She just kind of appears. Is she a ghost, a survivor from a failed timeline? What is she? I get you like Alice in Wonderland, but was this necessary, Kanaka? But that being said, outside of the Digital World arc, the writing works. It's mature enough to be enticing, but not to the extent that it becomes complicated. What I think really makes the story work is the main cast. We only have 3 main characters, which means we have time to flesh them out. Yes, more characters appear and they do get their time, but by starting small, we learn to really understand these characters. And at this point, I think it's time we talk about the characters, starting with the main Tamers and Digimon and then the rest. And then Rio. So our resident gogglehead this season is Takato. From the get-go, Takato is something of a dreamer. Not exactly immature, but it's clear that the kid is a kid. He's pretty much the only member of the group to treat having a Digimon-like characters in the previous seasons. Helps he's a fan of the show. And before anyone corrects me, yes, Digimon exist in the universe as both a show and game. Which gets weird with Rio. So for him, this is like a dream come true, a dream he wants to cherish, but also a dream he sometimes acts childish with.
Hey guys, look what I found!
Hello, I'm Johnny Knoxville, welcome to Jackass!
But as the show progresses, a major thing we get with Takato is his relationship with Guilmon. At first it's like a kid with a pet dog, and that's fun and all, but much like a dog, Takato learns that there's more to having a pet than having a pet. As the story continues, Takato begins to question his relationship with Guilmon. Not just that he created Guilmon, but that Guilmon is data, and data can be replicated and made to do what one wants. But despite this, Takato treats Guilmon not as a pet, but as a friend, and later on, almost a part of him. And in a way, that's kind of the same with Guilmon. The two are parts of one another. As Takato grows, so does Guilmon. The two are mirrors of the other. A good example being when Takato lets his rage consume him, which consumes Guilmon. Both Takato and Guilmon are shown to be nice beings, but both are also capable of great destruction. It's no coincidence that Jerry, Takato's canon love interest, is not afraid of Guilmon. She doesn't see a monster, she sees a cute being. When Guilmon is Megidramon, she blames Takato for destroying Guilmon, like a person saying their friend's anger is destroying themselves. It's only when Takato realizes the good in him, that the part that wants to do good, does he and Guilmon become Gallantmon, fully living the dream. And I think it's this living the dream that makes him the leader of the group. It was him living the dream that made the banner that unified the group during the Digimon World arc. It's him living the dream that keeps the group together. He's the heart of the group, the thing keeping everyone together, a leader that leads by building bridges. Interesting side note, in the Japanese dub, Takato is apparently written as something of a crier. In the English dub, he comes off as nervous. Honestly, I prefer the English version, if only because it reminds me of me. Ryan Gosling joke here. Moving on, Henry was an interesting case for me. At first I thought he was one of the better written characters. His whole pacifist with an actively wanting to fight partner was an interesting dynamic, but it quickly gets old when you realize the only character growth that comes from this is learning that sometimes fighting is required. It's decent, but done before. There is his relationship with his sister, but it's no Tai and Kari. Maybe if there was more development between the two, as is, it's surface level. There is his mixed Chinese-Japanese ancestry, but again, it's surface level. Just, oh hey, the Devas are like the Chinese zodiac, not much else. I do like that they state Henry was at one point a bully, and that hurting a kid caused him to go down the path of a pacifist. It's interesting, but only on a second watch kind of thing. Honestly, outside of his intelligence, Henry just ends up being a pseudo side character. He has his moments, but he's kind of predictable. Most of Henry's main characterization is his relationship with his father and vice versa. Most seasons tend to do little with the parents and kids, but this season it's integral, and I like that. Interesting note on the ending. In the Japanese dub, his father says he understands if you hate me, that you can never forgive me. Henry shaking his head is his way of saying, no, I forgive you, father. While in the English dub, it's his father saying the pain of losing a friend will ease, with the head shaking meaning, no, there would have been another way. In my opinion, both are valid to Henry, that he forgives his father, but that the pain will not go away, that there could have been another way. Maybe. Terriermon? Well, he's a gremlin. His whole motto is Momentai.
It means no worries for the rest of your days.
No, seriously, that's basically what it means in Cantonese. And he lives up to that. He's basically the counterpoint to Henry. Where Henry would be respectful, Terriermon would liven it up. The party friend to the wound-up friend. Gets interesting when comparing him to Leomon, a Digimon considered his twin.
My sovereign, your generosity and wisdom are without bounds. Thank you.
Thanks, Schuster. It's been real.
Kinda predictable, so not much there. Rika was an interesting character to analyze. Many of the female leads of Digimon, both past and future, tend to be used as a romance option for the male leads. Rika, meanwhile, is her own thing. Of the trio, she's the muscle. She's the one who not only looks for a fight, but knows she will win. She is the badass of this season. But even that is only a surface analysis of Rika. When you watch Rika, you quickly realize that for all her badassness, she has some complex problems. She's not on the best terms with her mother, she's arrogant to the point it blinds her, and she has some teamwork issues. But as the series goes on, these issues are slowly addressed and mended. Her arrogance slowly fades away as she realizes more and more that for all her strength, there is more to life than being the strongest. Her relationship with her mother slowly mends itself as both come together on common ground, or at least acknowledgement of the other's differences. And in the case of Renamon, slowly going from using the Digimon as a means to an end to seeing Renamon as more of an older sister. By the end of the series, Rika transforms from a prideful muscle of the group to the caring support. Yes, she's still willing to fight, but now to also help others. I mean, she went out of her way to save Impmon. Early Rika would have never done this. I'm a bit disappointed that in the end, Rika as Sakuyamon gave up her power to power up Rio, but it is in line with her learning to be more of a support. Still kind of a cop-out. One noteworthy tidbit is Rika's lack of a father figure. To those that watch the series, it's often pointed out that Rika has the characteristics of a girl who does not have a father figure. And what do you know? Rika has no father. Thing is, Kanaka never intended this to be the reason Rika acts the way she does. She's just tough, no other reason. That being said, the movie Runaway Locomon does kind of hint at there being some longing for her father, but since Kanaka was not part of that film, its canonicity is brought into question. That aside, I rather liked Rika's character. It was neat to examine. Still find it interesting she is the most tomboy out of all the female leads of Digimon, and honestly, I hope she holds that position for as long as possible. Her Digimon Renamon was also interesting. At first, it only appears Renamon is here to get stronger. Her relationship with Rika is one of mutual benefit. Both want to get stronger, but it's also clear that Renamon does care for Rika. As early as the third episode, Renamon shows concern for Rika above what Rika does for Renamon. Slowly, this morphs from business to bodyguard to even something of family. What's more, Renamon also shows concern for others. It's through her we learn more about Impmon and his troubles. There's also the point that Renamon is arguably the oldest and wisest of the Digimon, not counting Leomon, giving her an almost older sister vibe. Overall, an interesting and unique character for the series. One little thing about Rika and Renamon I did wonder was, well, in the German dub, Renamon is given a male voice, and that got me thinking. Rika is a girl, but is rather boyish. Renamon, meanwhile, is outwardly feminine, but has a masculine voice in the German dub. I wondered if perhaps the two represented a weird yin-yang or something. I did present this to my fellow Illuminati members and, well...
I'm going to lose my house.
They said I was wrong. Closest I got is that Kanaka designed Renamon to be androgynous, but that's about it, so, moving on. While not originally part of the main cast at first, Jerry, Impmon, and to an extent Guilmon are important enough to be a part of this analysis. Jerry. Oh boy, this girl needs a hug. Between losing her mother in Leomon to almost bringing the end times, Jerry has a lot of baggage. To the point my brother's note on her is literally, oh, Jerry is depressed, Jerry is depressed, Jerry is depressed, over and over and over again. But that's not how she begins. Early on, you get the idea that she's just a side character, a character who will be a friend of the group, but as time goes on, she becomes an important part of the group, and then almost brings on the end times. To me, Jerry is like an NPC that a D&D group has weirdly become attached to, with the DM frantically adding more and more to her character, especially trauma. Jerry feels like that, turning from a side character to a main character, but much like eating the apple, this leads to the plot affecting Jerry, and oh boy, once the depression hits, it hits. Which could help explain a discrepancy. In the English dub, Leomon tells Jerry that she has a lion's heart, basically she's strong, but this gets retconned to be the destiny thing. One could argue in Jerry's grief she's misremembering what happened. Hey, depression does things to a person. It's clear Jerry feels helpless, like everything goes wrong for her, that she'll be alone forever. Thankfully, others do come to her rescue, showing that people do care and love for her, but man, she goes through a lot. Impmon was an interesting case of an anti-hero. At first, he's just a nuisance, a troublemaker. But as we see, his anger with humans is not out of malice. Okay, a little malice, but experiences with kids mistreating him. Like Jerry, he feels powerless. Unlike Jerry, who has sadness, Impmon has anger. And as we all know,
fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering.
But once kindness is shown to Impmon, he changes. Because of Jerry breaking the cycle of destruction, Impmon sees the light and changes himself for the better. Like I said, interesting character, especially since he's not really edgy, just Hot Topic-esque. Guilmon. Decent character, but it's clear he's here to be the mascot. That being said, the fact that he sees into the character of Rika and willing to save Jerry shows he's a good friend. Okay character, but that's about it. Kind of with the whole he's responsible for Digivolution kind of thing. The only other thing I can think of is he had his own PS1 game? Yeah, that's about it. The supporting cast is alright. Kenta and Kazu, or as I like to call them Bill and Ted,
Excellent!
are not really much of a thing, somewhat comedic and not much else. If anything, interesting that Marine Angemon is used, but yeah, not much else. Susie. I do like we see her early on playing with Terriermon, and later not fully understanding Leomon. They play her up being a young child and it feels believable. Granted, she's here mostly to support Henry's character, so she's no Kari. Same with Ao and Mako. Okay characters, but only here for Impmon's character. The real star of the side characters are the adults. They are active in the plot, whether it be supporting the kids, character growth for the kids, or bringing exposition. Their presence is well regarded. Special note of Jun Yu, Henry's dad. I like how he's active in supporting his son, using his skills to help Henry and the gang throughout the adventure. And now for the villains. Well, it's kind of a roller coaster. Yamaki and to an extent Hypnos are interesting. They are the government dealing with the problems of Digimon. In earlier season, things like the government tend to be hand-waved, like they aren't a major player in all of this. In Tamers, oh boy, they are everywhere. I especially like how as time goes on, they become humanized. Yes, this is the same government program, but it's not like a conspiracy to bring back Kane. These are working people dealing with bureaucracy and the attitudes of their superiors. Yamaki in particular is unique of this group, taking his beef with the Digimon too far, but as the story goes on, he realizes the error of his ways, becoming a powerful ally. Shame they get upstaged by the Devas. The Devas are kinda pointless. Outside of Makurumon and Antillamon, I didn't even bother remembering their names. I don't get the feeling that these are some unified force, just some high-level wild Digimon. Makurumon at least shows some semblance of planning, what with him scouting out earlier, but even then, kind of a wasted villain. The Sovereigns, well, David Bowie, are pointless. All that build-up and nothing. I get there is some disagreement between them, and we do see Shenron and David Bowie fight, but it feels like the Phoenix Sovereign is just the odd one out. Again, a wasted villain. And then the D-Reaper. Oh boy, this is something new. The D-Reaper is an interesting concept of a villain, a digital eldritch creature. It's not a Digimon or human, just a program that has gone out of control, a program that has turned its attention to humanity. The fact that this thing is so alien helps it to being a villain. It can't comprehend anything but its purpose. Its man-made horrors made manifest. My only problem is I wish they built it up. Hint at it. Shows the D-Reaper's presence early on and its consequences. What I like about these villains is that none of them are truly malicious. Each is just doing what they think is best given the circumstances. Hypnos and Yamaki are doing what they're doing because the Digimon are escaping the digital world. The Devas are doing what they're doing because the Sovereign fears the D-Reaper. And the D-Reaper only does what it does because that's all it knows. In fact, if you want to go further, Impmon does what he does because of what he felt from his tamers, which in turn causes him to want power, which causes him to turn to the Sovereigns, who want to stop the D-Reaper, which causes Beelzemon to kill Leomon, which hurts Jerry, which causes, well...
End of days, bitches!
It's complex and not in a shades of grey kind of thing. You can understand why the villains do what they do. They are not in some castle laughing at the tamers. They're workers just getting another check. Servants to a higher power that is fearful of a monster that is just following its programming and learning from a girl who has seen nothing but misery. It's a well thought out web of complexity. But now we have to talk about him. Greetings, WonderSwan fans and members of the fandom. Welcome to a special bootleg episode of Codex Compliant. So, Ryu Akiyama is a rather polarizing character of the Digimon fandom. Depending on who you ask, he's either an interesting character or someone who steals the show. For those outside of Japan, Ryo just randomly appears in Tamers, and O2, and the movie. But who is he? To answer that, you need to know about the WonderSwan. Released in 1999, the WonderSwan is the last console Gunpei Yokoi ever worked on. And if that name sounds familiar, then it should, since the man pretty much developed the Game Boy and Virtual Boy. Yeah, the failure of the Virtual Boy pretty much forced Gunpei out of Nintendo, leading him to make his own company, Koto Laboratory. He would sadly die before the console would come out. The WonderSwan was pretty much a competitor to the Game Boy, using Gunpei's idea of using cheaper and well-known parts over newer tech, something that made the Game Boy, and to an extent Nintendo, quite successful. That's not to say the WonderSwan was a weak console. It did have more color gradients, meaning it could have more detail. So it's something. Eventually, a color version would be made. While the WonderSwan was a decent competitor to the Game Boy, it never got far. By the early 2000s, the Advanced was announced, pretty much killing the console. There was an agreement between Mattel and Bandai to bring the WonderSwan to the US, but nothing came of it, which is why many Digimon games on the WonderSwan have GBA equivalents. But what does this have to do with Ryo? Well, Ryo is the main character of a whopping 5 titles, none of which have ever came outside of Japan, though the first game did get a re-release with English subtitles. The gist of this story is that Ryo is called on to help the original Digidestin, using their Digimon to save them. Over the next couple of games, Ryo does things like help Ken, time travel, fight the end times, and somehow jumps timelines. I am condensing a lot of the story, but the point is he's done a lot of which is never told in the show. Though, apparently in the British Vox Kids magazine, a comic was made to summarize who Ryo was. A comic that never came to the US. The only reason Ryo is here is because of his popularity in Japan. He was just that well known of a character. What's my opinion on him?
Ooh, edgy boil out. Shops and say.
Yeah, I don't like him. He just kind of appears and doesn't add anything to the story. Partly Kanaka is to blame because, well, the higher-ups forced him to use Ryo, so Kanaka did, very sparingly. Which is fine, but come on, man, if you have to use him, use him. He has more purpose here than Alice. Personally, I like to think that because Ryo is such a good card game player, combined with making cameo appearances in the In-Universe Digimon show, gave him an ego. The games, well, maybe those are his self-insert fan games about how awesome he is. Games he made in RPG Maker or something. Then he gets his wish to actually be a Digidestined, and gets humbled by how difficult things are. At least, that's my headcanon. Or, I don't know, make him a digital human or something. Like I said, Kanaka, the guy has more reason to exist than Alice. So yeah, my dislike of Ryo is that nothing is done with him. Potential squander. Ryo aside, overall a decent cast. As for the aesthetics, it's great, digital world aside. Everything feels real, like this could have happened in real life. My complaint is the digital world, which is nothing but desert. Really? You couldn't have used Call of Cthulhu as inspiration, Kanaka? You know, non-Euclidean buildings? Special note are the designs of the Digimon, which slowly show the growth of the Tamers, with Guilmon becoming more and more like a monster, fully committing to the bit with Megidramon, before becoming Gallantmon. or Terriermon, who goes from a soft bunny dog thing to the Second Amendment made manifest, or Renamon, who goes from a strong frontal combat tank to an elegant support, all representing the growth of their tamers. As for music, it works, and glad we have a decent soundtrack that doesn't use Hey Digimon. I will say I do prefer the Japanese theme Biggest Dreamer over Butterfly, but that's just me. And now we get to the voice cast, which is good. I don't really have any complaints or comments. Brian Bocock brings a nice nervous energy to Takato that later becomes determined. Dave Wittenberg adds seriousness to Henry, and Melissa Fawn really works as the force to represent a strong but kind Rika. Mona Marshall returns as Terriermon, and Mary Daven impresses me going from Renamon to Renamon. But special attention must be given to Steve Bloom for Guilmon. He captured the goofy energy of the character even when he powers up. Same with Derek Stephen Price, who made Itmon sound weak at first with a goofy accent before morphing that accent into something that's more tough with Beelzemon. It works. The only weakness in this voice cast is Bridget Hoffman as Jerry. It works, but not to the same extent. It's alright. But honestly, even then, it's a great performance, which can be said for pretty much everyone else. In my opinion, this is perhaps the best voice cast I've encountered in a series. And as much as I'd like to analyze the voices further, we do need to move on. Look, this script is like 24 pages at this point. We need to move to the development, legacy, and final thoughts. So production of Tamers was pretty much a reaction to O2. With that series finished, the team had no idea what to do next. Kanaka, a man known for shows like Serial Experience Lane and Hellsing,
Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
was tied to the project. Kanaka, for his part, wanted to do new things with the series, specifically explore the more monster-esque and primitive nature of Digimon. He also felt that shows were dealing with death too lightly, and wanted death to have consequence in the show. Other elements was to show the kids making their own decisions about their Digimon, and not being giving these things without their input. Finally, Kanaka took inspiration from the world around him, exploring different parts of Shinjuku for inspiration. All this and more can be read on his website, links in the description. It's actually a pretty neat read. If there was any problems, it had to deal with Impmon in Rio. Early on, Impmon was intended to be Takato's partner, but this was rejected, so Guilmon was picked instead, which resulted in the realization that Guilmon was big, which helped with the writing of drama in the series. Impmon was instead relegated to villain before becoming an anti-hero. The next issue was Rio. Early on, it was decided that the original Digidestin would appear as mentor figures. This was dropped, but Rio was mandated to stay in, if only for contractual obligations, leading to the debate if Rio in the show is the same from the games. Both Kanaka and Rio's creator disagree on this. In any case, the series premiered in Japan on April 1st to, well, we'll get to that in the legacy part of the review. In the case of the US, well, Digimon Tamers would unfortunately have the distinction of being the last Digimon show produced by Saban and air on Fox Kids. What had happened was rather simple. Disney bought out Fox Kids and Saban. The reason I am not certain, but I suspect it was to get access to the animation library, since it was one of the largest in the industry. A library that had content being syndicated in other countries. Regardless, Digimon would be transferred to Disney for dubbing, which they did for the remainder of this season, and for a few things like the movies. As far as I can tell, nothing really wild happened during the US side of the production. Well, there was one thing. You know Beelzemon? Apparently he was supposed to have a more Stallone style of voice. This can be heard in Digimon Rumble Arena, as that was made prior to the production of this. However, Paramount contacted Saban saying Stallone was contracted to be Rocky. Paramount was told that this was an impression, and Saban was told that this could not be done. I find it interesting and an interesting segue into the legacy of the show because, oh boy, this script will be long. Buckle up, y'all! So when Tamers premiered in Japan, it was not well received, which was to be expected. Kanaka is somewhat of a niche author, what with his Cthulhu influences, and while it would be easy to say that the show did well in the US, not really. The problem was that the series did not continue the story of the original characters. Fans were unhappy with this new cast who had no connection to the original. There was also an issue with the content, which...
It's her fault! Everything is all Jerry's fault! Yep, it's time to go!
Yeah, scared off a lot of younger fans. The show also apparently did poorly in Spain for some reason. Not sure why, but maybe changing times? Which, yeah, by the time Tamers came out, Mon's style of anime were starting to fade in popularity. Pokemon was still king, but by 2006, 4Kids opted to not renew their license with that franchise. Regardless, Tamers would remain on the air, this time on Disney's Jetix, slowly fading away. Or did it? Despite everything, Tamers would gain something of a cult following as the years went on. Fans began to appreciate the series' darker tones and themes. Though, to say that it's dark like Neon Genesis Evangelion is a stretch, which, believe it or not, does turn the series off from some watchers expecting some dark and gritty show. It's a kid's show. It's like Bluey. It's watched and appreciated by adults. Still, the following was enough that Kanaka took notice. Now, to be fair, Kanaka recognized that there was an older fanbase for Digimon, and did his best to cater to it, specifically with the side story called Digimon 1984, a story that talks about the monster makers from the point of view of Daisy. In 2003, Kanaka would release the audio drama Message in the Packet. This audio drama is important because it splits the timeline. More on that later. In Message in the Packet, the kids try and contact the Digimon, because the portal Takato found was bricked up. Each kid writes what they can before sending their message in. This would be followed up with Digimon Tamers 2018. Well, technically Digimon Original Story 1-4, but it doesn't really add anything. Anyway, back to 2018. In this story, Takato is gone missing, so Hypnos gets the data of him from the digital world. Only issue is that this Takato is a copy of the one from 2001. We get an enemy in the form of the Malice Spot. Other info is apparently Takato and Jerry are engaged. Henry's a computer engineer, and Rika is a freestyle motorcycle driver. Neat! The story was then followed up with Digimon Tamers 2021. Oh boy. So in this story, the Malice Spot was destroyed, somehow, and Guilmon, Ao, and Mako are now missing. And then, well...
Political correctness. Cancel culture を発動中. Cancel culture を発動中.
Yeah, so a monster called political correctness appears, forcing people to conform to a singular point of view. It uses an attack called cancel culture.
What the fuck?
The story then ends on a cliffhanger. Yeah, there was a lot of backlash to this. It got so bad that Kanaka had to apologize, saying it was not his intent to split the fandom. We also learned that he was looking at alternative news sites. Not a bad thing, but remember, this was 2021, when a certain disease was big and things like InfoWars were a thing. Yeah, not a good time to bring up alternative news sources, especially ones on conspiracy theories. He also felt that computers were not as bad as an issue, which is fine, but, you know what, maybe it's best I have my friends say it.
Hi, I am Dagoth awakened Lord of the Sixth House in the Tribe Unmourned. You're probably wondering how Walter got Jeff Baker to voice me. Well, what if I told you it was through the use of AI? Yes, mortals, through the power of AI, one can make any voice say anything. Think of the implications of this power. What is real, what is not? What's a joke and what's a threat? For now, people use AI to make the presidents play games and joke for our amusement. But think what such power could do in the wrong hands. What eldritch horrors await those who misuse such things? Now, if you excuse me, I need to hit the catwalk. Have some high fashion I need to promote.
See what I mean? Only costs like $5 to do that. Scary stuff, but back to Legacy. Thing is, Digimon Tamers 2021 gets deeper when you learn about Digimon Tamers 2020. Intended as a follow-up to Tamers, the show went as far as a pitch meeting before being cancelled. Part of the reason, according to Kanaka, was trying to get the old cast back. Problem being, the cast unable to convincingly act as older versions of the characters, and the voice actress of Renamon being retired. Link in the description to the blog post, because it's something. What makes this weird is that we did have another continuation, another timeline. In 2002, there were 2 movies made. Battle of Adventurers, which is kind of canon because Kai is in it, and because it doesn't dispute what happened in the show. The other is Runaway Locomon. The thing about Runaway Locomon is that it's implied to take place after the show, showing the kids reunited with their Digimon. It's not considered canon as Kanaka did not work on it. It's also a movie that brought up Rika not having her father about her. Kanaka does appreciate the film, though it's clear he does not consider it canon. But political correctness was. This, I think, is Digimon Tamers' biggest legacy, that being how would one continue the series. If you had asked me before 2021, I would have said any continuation needed Kanaka, if only for his vision. But it's clear his vision is controversial. That being said, could someone continue the series? While Try and Last Evolution are well regarded, there are fans who disliked Try, and given how the director of Last Evolution treated the series, yeah, I don't know. Personally, I still think it's possible to make a continuation. Locomon shows that it could be done. And if you ask me, there are some good directors out there. Personally, I would see about getting someone like Hideo Kojima. The guy has some creative energy. I mean, look at Metal Gear Solid 2. Shares many of the same concept and themes of computers having great power. Then again, Kojima did make Death Stranding and, well...
What the fuck?
The point I'm trying to make is that any continuation of Tamers would have to be done carefully. But perhaps the greatest legacy of Tamers is its use of 3 main characters. Not counting Frontier, most seasons of Digimon now emphasize a trio of kids in Digimon. Yeah, the group may get bigger as time goes on, but it's that initial trio to begin with. Personally, I think this works because you get more time to spend with the characters as opposed to a large cast, help you really understand them all. I also like to think that Tamer's darker tone may have helped Bandai realize that there's a calling for a more adult fan base, or at the very least an interest in pushing what can be done with the franchise. Other little legacies include a few games here and there, like that Guilmon game. And who can forget about Renamon? I mean, I bought this art of her specifically because of the show. Link of the art is in the description. In fact, let's look up some more art of her. Yeah, let's not. Final words. Digimon Tamers has a reputation of being one of the best in the series, and it deserves that reputation. Between the writing, characters, themes, tone, this series deserves a watch. I have seen this show 2 times, something I have no intention to do with the previous seasons. One day I may even do a 3rd viewing. I may even watch this in the Japanese dub to see what was changed. Finding this series isn't too hard, as apparently the English dub is on Netflix, while subversions are on Funimation. Or so I've heard. Blu-rays of the show exist, and you can still get the DVD versions. Look, this is a series I recommend watching, especially if you have kids. You know, something that change up from watching Bluey. In fact, if you're into anime, show them this series and from there determine where to go. If they just like the monsters, then maybe go for something lighter, like Pokemon or something. But if they really like the darker tones, then, I don't know, bring out Neon Genesis Evangelion? Maybe? What I'm saying is that Digimon Tamers is kids' first Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's kid-friendly enough that I think most kids will handle it, but mature enough that parents won't be bored of it. Mostly. Give it a watch if you can. But now that leaves me with Frontier. One more show. Doraemon? They're ready? Excellent. Well, now it looks like the D Brigade has agreed to follow me. This will be fun. Time to come home, one way or another. This has been a Botluck Productions review. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next review.